Welcome students. Now that I'm going to teach you the underlying principle of ViewState, or those who don't know what is ViewState, don't worry. It is going to be one of the very basic concept in ASP.NET is about how to maintain a state in ASP.NET. Those who already know that okay, ViewState is one such principle, session state, application state. These are the various state managements that can be applied to save state in ASP.NET. Or those who are still querying what is state, what is ViewState, I don't know anything about this. Don't worry, this will be a very basic class, and this is a prerequisite for those who want to know what is the underlying principle of ViewState. So let me proceed. Let me create a new website. And it should be an empty website. I'm using Visual C# for the demonstration. Its name is the application's name will be state in web. Now this is going to be one of the very basic principle, not only true for ASP.NET but for any server-side programming, maybe PHP, maybe JSP, for any server-side programming. Now what I exactly want is, let me show you that what I exactly want. Add new item, waveform, let it be named as default, that's fine. Let us work with an example, then it will be demonstrating the purpose of this particular video. Let me have a button on my web page. Now all I want is that when I click on this button, the button will be disabled. It's a very simple solution, that if you double click on this button and if you write this code, that button 1.enabled equals false, then immediately on the click of this button, the button will be disabled. Let us see what happens when I click this. Very soon you will be understanding the purpose of this video. For those who are still querying that what is the purpose of this video, you will understand it very soon. The web page is starting, and this is the web page. And if I click on this button, the button gets disabled. Now I will want this button to be disabled on the 5th click, not exactly on the 1st click. I'd want the button to be disabled in the 5th click. Now what way should we apply? Now in that case, if we want the button to be disabled in the 5th click, we must need a counter that will be counting every time the button is clicked. When it is clicked for the first time, the counter will be 1, then second time the counter will be incremented, third time click the counter will be incremented by 1, and finally in the 5th click the counter will be incremented by 5, and will be checking that it has reached its stop point 5, and then this code will be running. Not this code will be placed right into this function open like this. It will be put inside some condition. So for that to be done, for those who is very new to ASP.NET, because this is a beginner's video, what they'll be doing is something like this: integer count. They'll be initiating the count with 0, and whenever the button is clicked, they will be incrementing the count equal to count plus 1, and they'll be writing this code: when count equals 5, the code will be running. the button will be disabled. If you are doing a Windows application, that is a WinForm application, where you have a form based application, not a web based application, then this is the only one and the right solution. But for web application, this will not work. Let me show you first that this will really not work. That is, we have initiated a global variable which is count equals 0, and then at every click the count is incremented. You see here, the count will be incremented at every click, and when the count is 5, we are running this code to disable this button. It's a very plain and simple code. So so that the button gets disabled exactly in the 5th click. Let us see that whether this really occurs or not. Look, this is the first click, second click, third click, fourth click, and 5th click. The button didn't get disabled. If I go on clicking it, the button is not at all disabling. Now I'll explain why this is really occurring. So you see that this is really a problem, but may I inspect that what is happening when I'm exactly clicking on this button? We can do this. Let us fix a breakpoint over here. A breakpoint. Now that if I click on this, you would have expected by now the count has reached a huge number, because I have clicked many times. Every time I am clicking it, the counter is incrementing. So let us just click on this button to see. For those who don't know what is breakpoints, breakpoints are a way to inspect your code in runtime. You can actually see the values of the variables. You can see, actually it's kind of arresting the code while it is executing. You are arresting the code. That is, stop, I want to see your variables, the data within you. You don't move forward. I will be clicking on this, step into F11, or you can also click this, step over F10. You can press F10, F11 or F10. Both are same, but I will be showing you later that the differences between these two. But you can click this first one, that's fine. Step into. So when I'm clicking this, you see that you can hold the value. You can get the value of this variable, which says the count is 1. That means just before the incrementation, count was 0. Now if I go on this, the count is never equal to 5, because 1 doesn't equal to 5. So the button remained, I'm sorry, actually it's kind of fault in my applications.
So there is no loop in it, so the count is not increasing.
No, there is no, actually the looping concept is not at all required. Why should we use loop? Looping means if we click OK, then it loops for 5 times and it finishes. So there is no such looping over here. Now if I click on it, you see once again the count is equal, count is 0. So every time as you click, the count is always 0. Now if I press continue, the count is always 0. So the moment the function expires, I mean this particular code logic expires this particular function block, the count is reset to 0. So why this is occurring? Why the count is resetting to 0? You can tell that if this were a local variable, this is perfect, but I have put it global, int count equal to 0. This is global. Then global variables, you see, is as good as local variables in ASP.NET. As global variables don't store their data. Got the point? Global variables are not able to keep their data active. That is, it is losing the value within it, and this loss of value is known as loss of state. State means the condition of a variable, the data within it. The data within the variable is lost. So you see that this is a way in which we can actually see the data of a variable. We can apply a breakpoint. Breakpoints are a simple thing that, once again, those who know what are breakpoints, we can actually click on any arbitrary region of the code to make a stopper. You can actually place multiple stoppers, multiple breakpoints, and the breakpoints are actually cleared. If you click on it, the breakpoints will be cleared. Breakpoints are a way to stop your code to inspect what was going on there at that point. At that point, what is the value of the variable, what was the execution state, what is the value of certain local variables, certain global variables. You can inspect the code. We can do a lot with breakpoints. So breakpoints are a fantastic way to debug your program. Debug means to check your program for errors or for any sort of inspection. For those who have already done Turbo C++, they already know that F7, we used F7 to step into the code. Breakpoints are a way to step into your code one at a time. So if you click this F11, if I press F11, you see we are stepping into it, and actually this is occurring because of some fault in my computer, my browser. I need to hit enter once more, yes, to just make this happen. So every time I just click this, the stopper is here, so it stops, and we see that the counter value is reset back to 0. When the yellow mark comes, that means this line is going to be executed. Please understand. When the yellow mark comes, that means this line is going to be executed, but not still executed. So if I already crossed this line by highlighting the next execution, this line got executed, and therefore if I hold mouse over it, it says count equal to 1. So count has already got its new value 1. We can also add a watch over here, like instead of holding mouse every time, what you can do is that you can right click on the variable. I right clicked and I'll just click on add watch. So a watch window comes over here. So watch window, the name of the variable and the current value of the variable. So now if you don't want to step any further, you can just press continue to run this to set this program free, to just set it free, just run it without any stoppage. So if I now just press continue, once again this is a problem. What I'll do is that, because it's causing some problem with my Internet Explorer, I'm sorry for that. What I'll be doing is that I'll be soon switching my default browser to Chrome. The way to do this, if you find any browser wrong, what you can do is that right click on this solution, you can choose browse with option, browse with, you can set Google Chrome, which is a very good browser indeed, set as default. So now this has become the default browser for Visual Studio, and close this. Now if you run this, the application will be starting in Chrome. Click, 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 and it never disappears. And if you have a breakpoint, you can see the code execution. Click, some fault, click on it. Oops, I have disabled the breakpoint. If I enable it and if I click on it, the same stuff happening. It is breaking and the button is never disabling because count is actually why this happens is that every time the page loads, all of the global variables also dies. Please understand, every time the page reloads, the global variables also suffer an instant death. All the local variables, all the global variables, everything, every asset of the page is washed off from the server's RAM the moment the page gets processed and the HTML is sent to the client. The moment the HTML is sent to the client, the HTML is the variables of that page is removed from the server's RAM. This is a very normal thing with ASP.NET pages life cycle, because if server is going to hold the variables, then very soon all of its RAM will be used up. So what it does, it just creates the necessary variables for the processing of the page, and the moment the page gets processed, all of the local, global, all the variables will be lost from the server, will be removed from the server's RAM to facilitate the execution of some other user's execution. So that some other user's execution can be honored, so that the server can be creating more variables out of the same piece of the land, means the RAM. So therefore, even global variables will not be surviving the post back. Post back means as you click the button, there is a post back. So what is the solution? That means ASP.NET is totally stateless. Not only ASP.NET, all applications. Servers is not, don't expect server to remember you. Way out is this, to use a very special thing. Let me show you one interesting thing, that though the server is not remembering the global variables, what you can do is that you can send HTML, some hidden HTML into your client's browser, and the value will be stored up there. Count equals to 5 will not be shown anywhere else. Let me show you that the way to do this. Instead of having this button, what I can do is that I can keep a label, or for that matter anything I can just keep. Fine. What I'll be doing is that label, initially you see this is a label, this is a label whose text is label. Fine, I will not be keeping its text as label. What I will do is that its label's name is label 1, label's name is label 1, that's fine. Now view code, go to view code. Now instead of count equals to 0, making it this way, what I will do is that if I will be storing the values inside the label's text itself, the label itself will be storing 0 or something of that sort. So what I will be doing is that initially I will be making this label to hold a value 0 here in this way, 0. Now what I will do here is that label.text, label1.text equals what? The label1.text plus 1. Now quite correctly, label1.text is a string type and 1 is a number type, so I need to convert this string type to number type. So I will be doing this sort of thing, integer.parse. I will be converting this to number, and then I will be incrementing it, and the incrementation is still a number, and therefore what I will be doing is that I will be converting this whole to string. Please get this point. It's quite simple thing, that label1.text was a string, therefore I need to convert it to integer, and integer plus integer became an integer. Now integer cannot be stored inside a string type data, and therefore I need to convert it to string to facilitate its storing over a string type. Now thing is that if you do not do this 0 or something right into the design time, if I right click and just put it 0, it's fine, text to 0, but we can also do it in the coding area also. What I'll do is that if labels text, label1.text is something like this, empty, if this is empty, I will be initiating it to 0. Please understand this. Very simple, and we are now done. I'll just tell you why. If label1.text is space, which is obviously the first time when one clicks, the labels text is empty space, because we have set it from the design that labels text should be initially nothing, and this is the name of the label, it's label 1, that's fine. And that if it is empty space, its value will be equalized to 0. And then in the next code line, what it does is that it inspects the current value of the label, rather the previous value of the label. Now this value of label is actually signifying the number of clicks. I hope you are getting the point why I'm using label. Just label will be used to store the number of clicks, because I am not getting any good variable, not the global variables are insufficient for storing the data. Therefore we are using a control to store the data. So I have dragged and dropped a label, and I'm using labels data as a method to store the number of clicks. So when the label text label dot text, the text cannot be equal to 5 once more, because you know that C# is quite like a thing about typecasting. So therefore I need to typecast over here. So now that it's really quite picky about this typecasting, so I need to typecast it to like integer.parse label1.text. If that equals 5, and the time has come to disable this button. We are disabling this button. Now this is the right code, you see. If label.text is empty space, then labels text is equalized to 0. Now this happens only once in the lifetime of the clicks. Only the first time as we click, the label will be empty space and will immediately be equalized to 0. And the line beneath does the interesting stuff. It reads the value of the label, converts it to integer, increments it by 1, and stores back the same value into the label's text. And the last line is a checker. It checks whether if it is equal to 5, and the button is disabled. If I run this, you will get the fun of this code. That's what it does. But the thing is that the label is shown on the screen. I don't want the thing of this short to be visible on the screen itself. Like if I click on this, click this once, click this twice, thrice, 4 times, and 5th, bye bye, done. So you see the count is visible over here, which I really don't want. So the data is actually what I am doing. I am incrementing the data and storing the data right into as a HTML of this page, because storing the data into the label means you are keeping the data with the HTML of the page. Got the point? If you do something on the page and if it is visible in the page itself, that means you are modifying the HTML of the page itself. Though this is the very first class of ASP.NET, one of the very first class of ASP.NET, but that needs certain prerequisite information. For those who are watching this video on web, should have some of the prerequisite information about the basic knowledge of ASP.NET page lifecycle, some basic information about the coding aspects. So for my students who are just learning it right now, they know these facts, but those who are watching this video online, if they don't know this, what I recommend is that go through some good book on ASP.NET or some very basics, some basic fundas, that what is exactly ASP.NET page lifecycle. Then these things will be clearer to you. That the ASP.NET, everything in ASP.NET, or rather in web itself, the information will be stored and transferred over HTML. The basic client server protocol, the basic HTML part should be clear to you. That's fine. You see that what we are doing is that we are taking the help of the label to store the data. Now what you can argue is that if you don't want this label to be visible, just make it invisible, because if it is invisible, if I make it from visible to true to visible to false, then it will not be visible to the user itself, but the data is maintained internally, and the data can be read directly by the button itself. Because as I click on this, you see that as I click on this, you are actually reading the value, consulting the value of this label and incrementing it. So therefore it is important for us that label should be giving its value, though it is invisible, but that doesn't mean that we can't read its value. We are able to read the value of the label. Let us run this and to see the same thing happens without any flaw, but it is as we are expecting. Click once, twice, thrice, 4 times, finally done. So that means we are able to save the state of the page using another control placed on the page in a hidden form. We can do this. In fact, there is already an HTML control to do this particular task. There is already an HTML control for doing this particular task. Let me show you that control. So we should not be using label for that purpose. Rather, we should be using an important HTML control, that is input type input hidden. We can use this HTML input hidden. It's a very nice control. You see, we can actually use this control, and if I actually drag and drop this input hidden, it doesn't show up because it is hidden and it is here. Input ID hidden, type is hidden. So input type is hidden. If you write this is very plain HTML and its ID is hidden 1. Now one more interesting thing is about some of the very fundamental thing is that because this is plain HTML control, this control cannot be directly accessed from the server side code. For this to be accessible from the server side code, we need to do something. 1, 2, 3. Yes, now what I need to do is that input ID hidden, type equals hidden. What I need to do is I need to type in run at equals server. Run at equals server. Now if I write this, then this ID equals hidden 1, this hidden 1 can be accessed from this page itself. Now what I will do is that instead of label 1, I will now be writing hidden 1. This is a variable definitely. Now instead of text, I will be writing dot value, because HTML controls don't have really text, it has the value property. Now the same thing, hidden 1 dot value, copying this, paste this, just replace this all the label type of thing with hidden 1. Hidden 1 dot value is empty space. If it is empty space, then label 1 dot text, then hidden 1 dot text will be 0. And then hidden 1 of value is incremented by 1 at every click, and if it is 5, then it is disabled. Now initially what I will be typing is that value equals empty space. The same thing that we are doing for label. Instead of label, just keep a input type hidden type of data which doesn't show up in the page at all. That means your design will not be destroyed. You see that if you do that, even if we don't have any value, ASP.NET will be marking some area for this control for you to understand that you have kept a control over here. But if you are placing a hidden control, since hidden control never appears on the page, so therefore hidden control will not be destroying the page's layout. For those who are doing designing, they will understand the pain. If you keep something, automatically the page gets de-aligned and your design get messed up. So therefore there is no reason for the design to be getting messed up, and your design is just perfectly okay, and still you are getting the same output. Let me show you. Now we can safely remove this label totally. Run this. So now that you still have one button, you have kept one control, but that is by default, by birth, that is hidden. Click this once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and it is done. See, to be quite honest, ViewState internally uses input type hidden. ViewState is nothing but it uses this control hidden, input type hidden. If you ever use ViewState in your code, and if you right click and click page if you right click and if you just go to the page's view source, you will find an input type hidden control to be shown. Let me show you this. Like if even if this view state kind of thing is always used for ASP.NET pages state maintenance by default. So even if you haven't used any view state in this page, still you will see one thing there. Like if I right click on this page, if I go to pages view source, you see by default input type hidden is placed, and there are two such, 1 and 2. So why there are two, that's a different question, but you see that input type view state, it is always present, and a big encrypted value is stored within it. And you see internal way of storing it, nothing but input type, using input type hidden control, and we are using it explicitly, input type hidden. So view state internally uses input type hidden for doing its action. So view state, so now you can understand that how is exactly view state working for those who have already gone through the concept of view state. Now if they don't know, or if they knew this is a way to judge how exactly view state is working. View state works with this input type hidden control. We can store anything. Like if I just place a few text boxes on the surface of this application, just I'll put some text boxes, some text box, that's fine. Maybe some another button, just that I have done this, and if I run this, you will find the view state's data length will be increasing. Let me write here something. I click this button. Now if I right click and go to page source, you see that this view state, this data size will be incrementing, and more control you place on your surface, more is the length of this encrypted data. So view state, using view state instead of using hidden state is having a additional benefit. Now you may query that, then why exactly we'll be using view state? Let me use the raw power, let me use the input type hidden itself. You are most welcome, but in that case you see the counter, you see in the very beginning input type hidden, the value input type hidden 1, type is hidden, ID is hidden 1. Now the moment if I click on this button, oh sorry, I have just stopped it, you will find the value to be incremented. At every moment I am clicking this button, you will find the internal value to be incremented. I can show you this one. We click it once, as because you have clicked once, expect that 1 to be present. You see value equal to 1. Input type hidden, name is also hidden, ID is also hidden, fine, and the value is 1. If I close this, why I am closing this, my mistake. Actually I am thinking that I am closing the notepad window, but actually by mistake I am closing the full browser. And click this, right click and go to page view source. You see this is 1. Now if this is the source window, just close this, click it once more, now it should be 3. Go to view page source, this 3. Now you are able to see these values 1, 2, 3. If you were using directly view state instead of input type hidden, then you could not have seen these values, because these values would have been encrypted and stored somewhere here. We would have never understood where your value is, but your value will be encrypted, so that when it goes to the client and it gets shuttled back to the server, nobody knows what value is stored there. So it is encrypted. So view state gives you some additional benefit of encrypting your data automatically, what input type hidden will not give you. And also because view state you can unbox, you can just do a lot of stuff with with view state, where if you are using this input type hidden, you have to do it manually. because the data is always in the string format. I hope students you have got the point of using of state management or basic page level state management in ASP.NET. We can use input type hidden variable to store interpage data, and that is and that is how exactly the ViewState underlying works with. Thank you students for being here and watching this video. See you soon.